It's every musician's worst nightmare. Hello everyone and welcome to Movie Reviews by Josh. My name is Josh Terry and today I'm going to talk about a really interesting movie I just watched called Sound of Metal, which is streaming on Amazon. And it's the story of a heavy metal drummer who loses his hearing. Now this was a really interesting thing for me to watch because I have a background in music. I played in a lot of bands and play the drums, but I also have a history of hearing loss in my family. And so with those two dynamics, this was a really fascinating movie. But to kind of give you a sneak preview, I guess, you don't have to have family with hearing loss or a background in music to appreciate what's going on here. So the story centers around a character named Ruben, who's played by Riz Ahmed. You might recognize him from Rogue One a couple of years ago. And he's in this two-person heavy metal band with his girlfriend, Lou, who is played by Olivia Cooke. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, if you saw her in that a couple of years ago, you might recognize her as well. So the two of them are just kind of a two-person band, and the movie opens with them doing their thing, and it's a pretty, even within the realm of heavy metal music, it's pretty niche, and so they've kind of got a unique thing going on. But then soon after that, Ruben starts to realize that he's having some hearing problems and quite rapid deterioration. And this is obviously something that's very traumatic and very sudden for him. But he also doesn't quite appreciate what, the seriousness and the gravity of what is happening. Just for example, when he goes into an audiologist to find out, what's going on and what possible, solutions or approaches are going to be to deal with his hearing loss, he learns about cochlear implants for the first time, and as soon as he learns what they are, he's like, great, sounds awesome, you got a couple in stock, let's do it, and it takes him time, and his character's journey through this movie is kind of understanding, the full weight of what he's being challenged with, and it's kind of an interesting, it's a very interesting journey, because right after this happens, obviously they can't continue to tour as the way they were doing before. They were living out of this this large RV and basically going from gig to gig, and so to complicate matters even further, Ruben's also a drug addict. He's a recovering drug addict. He's been clean for 4 years, and so in order to address the situation, he winds up joining a group, kind of it's part of the deaf community, and I take it as kind of like a cross between rehab and trying to learn how to live as a deaf person. So he starts to learn how to sign, but he has to be kind of cut off from society, I think, so he doesn't relapse and turn to drugs as a way of coping with his difficulties. Lou winds up going back to live with her father in Paris, and so they're separated, and there's this tension because, of course, the love of his life is across the ocean and, kind of pursuing her own musical interests. And of course, I don't want to give away too much here, but what is really kind of fascinating about this movie is that it deals with a lot of, there's a lot going on here, because I think that the whole question of how best to deal with hearing loss, the question of do you go with cochlear implants or, do you join in with kind of the deaf community, which, believes that this is not something that can be that should be fixed. There's controversy there. And then, of course, you compound that with the question of his addiction, which honestly, if I had to be critical, it doesn't seem like they really emphasize that as much as they could have. And maybe it's just because there's just too much going on to do so. Most of the film really kind of focuses in on Ruben's question of, is this a part of me or is this something that I can fix and move on from? And the movie definitely kind of points you in certain directions, but also leaves things, I think, suitably ambiguous, because there are a lot of pros and cons to weigh, and it's not an easy decision to be made. And like I said, after kind of experiencing a little bit of this with family, I think it's well handled and gives you a lot to think about, even if it doesn't, even if you don't exactly agree with everything that's said or you feel differently. I think that this is a very thoughtful movie. Very well put together movie. It's very, you start off with kind of like this big heavy metal, performance, but then the rest of the movie is much more contemplative, much more meditative. There's definitely kind of a mood to the style. Darius Marder wrote the screenplay and directed it, and there's a very clear contemplative kind of indie movie tone to it. Overall, I would give it 3.5 stars out of 4. It's a movie that is well put together. It's certainly not perfect, but I really appreciated the way it handled things. In fact, I think one of the best things about it, one of the most profound things about it, and I don't think this is giving away too much by saying so, but there's the question of how to deal with hearing loss. There's also kind of the question of addiction and that kind of thing. But what is really ultimately relatable about this movie, and I think what makes it really work, is that the Ruben character is on a journey to let go, because regardless of how he deals with his new circumstances, his new life is not going to be his old life. And for all of the different points of debate, the reality is that he's trying to come to grips with a dramatic life change. And that's something that's why I say, like, regardless of whether you have any background in bands or whether you have any experience with hearing loss or anything similar, we can all relate to the idea of having to let go of something. And that's what I think makes this movie really strong. So like I said, I'm going to say 3.5 stars out of 4 for sure. Really enjoyed the acting and the performances, a lot of things about this, very thoughtful. It is rated R almost exclusively for language, and it's not R-rated language throughout. But it is persistent enough that it's the kind of movie that if that is not something that you are interested in, then you want to avoid it. But otherwise, just kind of some suggestive sexual content, a little bit of violence and gore. I mean, there's an operation scene, but I would say pretty mild otherwise. So what's your favorite movie about a musician? Leave your answers in the comments below. Thanks for watching. This has been Movie Reviews by Josh. My name is Josh Terry, and I'd be very grateful if you would subscribe to my channel on your way out. Leave your notifications on so you can see our new videos as soon as they're posted, and have a great day.